Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Flame. Today we are talking all about getting your ticket priorities right. Yes, hello. Yes, another episode time. Here we go. So, medium, rare, or burnt, getting those ticket priorities right. Hello and welcome, Ed. How are you?
I am doing well, Dan, and yourself?
Yeah, very good. Today is a very sunny day here in England. It's rare we don't get sun, so I have spent all day sat outside. I feel very much like one of those burnt sausages. So,
Capture that weather up and just keep it, man. Just keep it.
oh yeah, absolutely. I didn't. The only thing that was missing was a grill. Right? I just
See,
wish I had my grill out.
you need to get it. I'm telling you.
I
You
know.
get the grill. We're gonna make it a road trip over to the
Yeah,
UK and set it up.
absolutely. I need that. I'm just waiting. That wedding present that won't come, eh? Anyway, back to topic. Yes, today we're talking all about those ticket priorities. So, in a nutshell, how does a company set themselves up for success when it comes to ticket prioritization? Is it urgency? Is it impact? Is it SLAs? How do you deal with queue management? Do you have lots of different queues? Do you have one big queue? And all that kind of good stuff. So,
Yeah.
what's Ed? What have you seen in your previous life?
Yeah, and a lot of it depends on, hey, how many service desk agents do you have, or how many service agents do you have? Do you have one person that is, acting as the triage and agent to figure things out? Do you have 10 service agents? So, you know, y- a lot of it depends on how many resources you have applied to that, but then also what's your operational processes? What kind of service requests are you dealing with? So, are you dealing with bug fixes or feature requests? Do you have your different priorities figured out, your different SLAs figured out? Are those competing kind of things? So,
Mhm.
hey, do I have priority Sev 1, Sev 2, Sev 3? But I also have SLAs of 4 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours. Do those line up? Do they match? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
So a lot of thought process goes into how do you set up your service management and your queue processing. So what about yourself there, Dan?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think some of the stuff that I've previously kind of been involved in, they're very vastly different, which is uh, really, really nice when we come to kind of talk about this topic. So I've worked as an operations lead, dealing with like the background technology for call centers. I've worked with like utility companies that have, and I've watched their service teams work on the platform. Um, and you're totally right, right? A call center will have hundreds of people sat there waiting for you to phone up, but
Yeah.
they have to also know enough and have enough scripts to be able to deal with your problems from start to finish because they just want to get as many out through the door as they can. They don't want to have to escalate. Whereas when you start thinking about software development teams or when you start applying other kind of product level, you might have that more of segregated approach, which is you'll have your service team that do all your L1. The moment there's any sign of a needing to escalate, that's it. It's passed off. It's someone else's problem not someone else's problem, but another team's and another queue and another SLA. So I think there is a definite nice variety out there for sure.
Yeah. So what about when tickets come in? A lot of times in the past, we would, obviously you can define your workflow, but we'd always have like a triage status. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Ticket comes in, triage. So here's the part where we need to make sure we have enough information to be able to make a decision on where to route this service
Yeah.
request or send it back because we need more information, right?
Yeah. So I think that yes, absolutely. Your triage is your first line of defense for anything. The more that you can push to self-service, that's definitely an episode that I would recommend watching. The more that we can do about providing your L1 engineers with the right knowledge to do as much of that kind of first-time fix and ticket deflection. Again, other episodes worth watching. That they're really, really vital because if information is missing and you clearly do need to do some sort of later down fix, you want to make sure that you get that as early as possible. So this is when setting up the right the requests, making sure that you're capturing everything you need to. That's when that all kind of comes into play. What I do think is very key, which I think that some companies struggle with, is around understanding the urgency, the impact, and relating that back to a priority.
Yeah.
Because humans are inherently we don't necessarily want to sit there and think. We will often just click and be like, that's P1, right? It's my problem. I'm just going to click P1 because I want that solved. But it's not that, right? When you actually think, this is when you start to see more and more companies saying, I'm not giving you the priority. I just want you to tell me roughly what's wrong, which is like, it's to do with this part of the product and I cannot use it at all, or it's part of functionality that's missing. And then they can gauge from that and create a priority.
And it's like, who's defining the priority? So if it's a customer, everything's going to be a P1, right?
Yeah.
It's like, are you kidding me? The world's ending. We need this fixed yesterday. And you get all the information and it comes into the queue and everything. And the triage person looks at it and says, okay, the world's not ending. This is an impact and here's who it's going to impact, but it's actually probably a P2 kind of thing. And we can get the right resources engaged.
Yeah. And it is okay. And we used to actively encourage our service agents to do that part in the review, which is, if you think that priority manipulation or whatever, nice fancy words that people want to give it, i.e. is just being taken advantage of, downgrade the priority. Don't be afraid, or upgrade it as well. If you think someone hasn't been kind enough, upgrade it. It is your responsibility at every stage you're touching that ticket. Write a triage the next time it comes back from a customer from comments to reassess the priority. Has it changed? Are we now seeing similar tickets coming from other customers? Has it gone down because actually we've just released a patch? These are all the things, and you should be readjusting that priority as that ticket continues.
Yeah, and it's important for that triage person, that first line of defense, like you said, is making sure that they understand all the information that is required.
Yeah.
And either pushing back to get it or having the ability to get that information. But then that leads into, I guess the next question is like, okay, so we have 50 service requests in a queue now. So how do we figure out which ones to attack first?
Yeah.
We, because, if you have multiple service desk agents, the easy thing to do is like, well, I'm just going to take the easiest one first, get that knocked out so I can have my, get that resolved and I look good. But that kind of can push some of the more complex service requests down further and, give them, it takes more time for them to get resolved.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely a challenge. I think that we've all seen again, the abuse of that kind of thing, which is, as an engineer, maybe you're not having a good day or whatever it might be. So I'm just going to take the easy things, or you don't feel like you have the knowledge. So therefore, I'm just going to take the easy ones, the things that I know that I can resolve and I don't have to rely on other people. So I've definitely seen that for sure. I think, first of all, contractually, if you have a ticket in SLA, that should define your priority, right? Because what you don't want to be doing as a service company is giving out money because you didn't meet your contractual obligations. So I do think that has a big part of it. Usually priority is the big one. If you don't have those, is like, if Atlassian went down, for example, pretty sure that would be very important to them to get restored. Whereas like if just Jira automations were a little bit buggy. So I think that you do have to consider that as well. But I do think that to a level, again, this is where like the constant reassessing, has this ticket been escalated to 2 or 3 different teams, and now the customer experience is being affected, and that's my reputation. Do we need to consider this more of a priority to resolve? So I do think that comes into it as well. What about you?
Yeah. Absolutely. The more I think about that, there's just so many layers of setting up your service management and queue management strategy. So it's like, how many queues do you have? Do you have one central queue and everyone just pulls from that? Do you you separate your queues out by request type, and then have specific service agents that are dedicated to that. And then you go down into those queues, and they're going to have layers of priorities or SLAs. So, do the SLAs need to be linked to other issues that may be impacting the one that you're working on, kind of thing. So there's so many different layers that it's almost like you have to have your holistic thought process of defining your queues, your queue strategies, your workflows within your queues, your priorities, your SLAs, getting all that, fully set.
Yeah.
Implementing.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, any good team, and this comes back to the idea that I know we've spoken about to many of our partners, which is that continuous improvement. It is okay to get it wrong, and it is okay to inspect and adapt a month, 2 months, 6 months, whatever it might be, down that line, and say that plan didn't work. That's okay. You've learned. You're changing. I think that's very, very vital. But you pointed out right at the start, I think a lot of this plan would change depending on the number of agents, the type of customer you're dealing with, and the type of problems you might be getting. So, my experience with a particular retail company here in the UK was everything came into your central triage point, which meant that we weren't having someone just dealing with phones, someone just dealing with emails. It all came in, which meant that we could properly assess the prioritization, any similar stories we're getting, as parts of systems down and things like that. And from there, we trained our L1s to be as good as we could and to really assess the ticket standards. Are the right teams, are the right products mentioned? Have we got custom field values that are missing? And we obviously fixed all of that during that period. So we spent a good 10 minutes understanding the ticket. At that point, the moment they said triage complete, it was no longer their responsibility. It would disappear to the specific team that looked after that. Now, that is okay because of the number of agents and the type of product they were dealing with. That doesn't suit every company because that's a lot of overhead.
So along with the queue strategy, laying it all out, what about visibility and metrics from that perspective? What kind of things do people normally want to look at from that perspective? Is it like a cycle time of service requests coming in to resolved? Is it SLAs met? Is it a mix of that?
Yeah, I think it's both a lot. And I know we've spoken about cycle time, but not usually with an ITSM, but I do like the idea of it. First of all, contractual ones, as always, don't hemorrhage money because you're missing points. So make sure that if tickets are getting close to breach, you've automated, you've done the notifications, you're aware of it, you're being proactive. So always make sure that you're not, as a business, going to be affected by those levels of mistakes. Other basic things, track trends.
Trends.
Yeah, trends. So are you seeing a rise in this part of the product? Maybe you've just had a release and therefore you're seeing a natural increase, and you know that in 6 months' time that will go back down to normal. That's okay. But at least you've done that tracking of that release. What happens if it doesn't go back down, right? And your ticket constantly going like that, right? That's a problem.
Yep. I think you get the trends. I think you get, you can also get your agent workload metrics. So, how are your agents, how's the workload being spread out over your agents? Is there, one or two that are just taking the brunt of the work? Can we spread that out? Again, to your trends comment, do we see agent trends? Do we see cycle time trends? All that can feed back into improving the whole process.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the agent trends point, actually, and I think I just want to second that, which is what happens if you're the experienced engineer in this case. I have just joined the team. You see an increase of my tickets having you on them in some capacity or being reassigned to you. That's fine. I'm new. I'm learning. If that doesn't go away and I'm constantly giving you more work as that secondary engineer, there's a problem here, which is knowledge. How are you transferring knowledge to me to lighten your workload.
Yep.
So there's that big element, which is how can we continuously spread knowledge, make sure that we've got more than one senior engineer in a specific area and those kind of things. So I think that's really, really key. Track your trends.
Yep. Because we know, service agents, you can cherry pick, requests to meet certain metrics. Make sure that I've worked this many tickets and they've been resolved in this amount of time. So so you can always fudge that number, but track those.
I was going to say you can do that, but I think actually by tracking the trends, you'd also see that people only handpick certain things. If I saw that you were only handpicking authentication, but I knew that you should have been learning something else, it gives you an opportunity to have those kind of conversations and continue to spread knowledge and make sure that you're doing things. It's great that Ed's really experienced in authentication. We also need Ed to go and learn this. So I think that's good. But you mentioned about cycle time. So how would you see the cycle time kind of coming into this?
I mean, so there's several different cycle times that you could probably look at. You could, end-to-end life cycle of service requests coming in to it has been resolved. Or are there specific other parts of the workflow that you would want to look at as well? Like, hey, it's been in review or it's been in a specific status for 3 days, and we know it shouldn't be in that status for 3 days. So, all different little touch points throughout the workflow that you can look at and track from that whole life cycle perspective. So, again, that's part of the whole defining your whole service management queue process, priorities, SLAs, what metrics you want to track and visualize, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really key. I think if you're seeing bottlenecks, especially about a time and status, a ticket's on hold for ages because you're waiting on a supplier to send laptops, right?
Did you forget about the ticket, or is something really holding you, kind of thing?
Yeah. Right. So these are really good things. And we've all experienced, I literally have experienced the laptop not arriving on day one about 1 million times. But you would see that in the analysis by, that ticket's been on hold. We've been waiting for our supplier to give us a tracking number and they never did. So, there's lots of things that you can start to pick up from that.
So speaking of that, do you have any horror stories, man, on a service request at all? Or I know when I was on a project out in, I believe it was a healthcare insurance company out in California, and me and this one service agent, it was comical because we almost got in a fight of assigning it back and forth to each other kind of thing, because it's like, I'm like, hey, I did this, and this is in your area. And so I would assign it to him, and like literally 2 minutes later, it's assigned back to me. And it's like, dude, what's going on? Why you keep assigning it to me? I thought we were past this and this is now into your area. And he's like, no, I need more information. I'm like, well, I gave you the information in the comment. And he's like, no. So it was just like a back and forth fight.
That ping pong is, is frustrating for both the customers and the agents involved in the ping pong tournament there. I think my worst horror story for a particular ticket has to be is when I first started my Atlassian career, and cloud was not a thing, and if it was certainly like a private hosted cloud, right? So you may have been on your own AWS, but realistically, a lot of people sat there on servers. Or it would be that old rusty computer that's sat under the senior dev's desk and hasn't had a clean out in about 5 years or whatever it might have been. I was sat there, I was shadowing, and I was looking over a consultant's thing, and we just heard this bloop, and we just saw the power disconnect from the box, and just watching the number of people run to service, just to like, Jira's down, and they're like, we know Jira's down, we're trying to fix it, and they're like, but Jira's down, and it's like, we know, we're trying to solve it.
Who unplugged the server?
Yeah, and it turns out that someone literally did unplug the server. They plugged the vacuum cleaner in.
Oh.
Yep.
Oh, phenomenal.
So
awesome.
building resiliency, don't do that.
Yeah. What's the backup plan for that? So
Yeah. That will need nicely into future episodes about, major incident comms and things like that. But that was the worst that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Okay. It's kind of getting close. There's one more topic that I definitely want to bring up.
Yep.
It's a common theme. We know that we're going to touch on it, but automation, AI. How do you think that automation can help companies get queue management right?
Yeah. So, obviously, there is existing AI that helps service desk agents do some automation and do templatize a lot of the responses. Like, okay, hey, I got a service request in. This is a common one. So here's a templated reply that we can shoot back. And then also, like a canned responses and be like, hey, we got that. But also bringing in some AI from the perspective of being able to help resolve your issues from that perspective, from whether it's reaching out to a foundational model or your own internal knowledge bases kind of thing to be able to help expedite the resolution of a service request. So I think those are some of the ways that it's coming in here. But automation. Obviously, he comes in, it's a sev one, and it hits these two other conditions. We need to move it from triage to elevated status kind of thing. So there's all kinds, and then send out notifications. So there's all sorts of conditional automations that you can employ to make sure that the right people are looking at the issue and being notified and the correct actions being taken.
Yeah. I think that's really cool. If you're the moment you start having it hit the dev team A, and a custom field says it's dev team A, maybe send a Slack notification telling them that dev team A has assigned an issue. Let them be as proactive as possible and be like, we're telling you that this new thing is here, or maybe you're starting to see patterns. And again, that trend analysis will come in key there. If you start to see, let's say 10 or 20 requests all come in to do with authentication, you haven't got an authentication request. When we're talking about the world of Atlassian, they now have the Atlassian intelligence be able to help build request types based on information. So you use that level of functionality. It's going to look over your data. It's going to be able to suggest areas. To your point, Ed, about tickets can now recommend key stakeholders to bring in, resolution people, even down to the idea of like, here's a bunch of run books that we think will help solve your issue. Do you want to run them? So use technology to wherever you can to kind of solve those issues for sure.
Right.
Yeah. Amazing. All right. Well, thank you so much, Ed, for your time. I know that it's valuable, and I always love getting our little chats once a week.
These are awesome. I love it. And I hoping everyone else is enjoying these as much as we are. So
yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you very much all for watching another episode. Until the next time, we are done.